You've already been introduced to lists, and one of the main things I said was a list is sort of like an array list in Java, except that you can mix data types. I wanted to show you the Python equivalent of a lot of the Java methods for array lists. So how do you set values, how do you insert values, how do you remove values. Before we do that, though, I'd forgotten to show you kind of a neat thing. So you can compose lists this way. I can have a list length 1 whose elements is 2, and I can have 20. And then if I look, there are 20 number 2s. Or you don't have to take my word for the fact that there are 20. You could get the length of it, and I see that there are 20. That same idea works with strings as well. So I could have like dash 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 times 10, and it's displayed 30 dashes. Let's proceed to the main thing, though. So let's say letters equals, I'm going to create a list from the string hello there. And let's just look at it. Okay, there it is. Just as with strings in the last video, if I wanted to, I could use the count method and say count how many L's there are, and there are 2. If you want to add things onto the end of the list, you can say letters.append and give it the element that we want to append. And you can see that it's now added it onto the end of the list. If I want to remove one element at a time, I can use pop for that. And the way pop works is I give it the index I want to remove. It will remove and return the value at that index. So let's say letters.pop. If I don't specify a parameter, an argument rather, it returns the last element. So if I look at removed, that's what got removed, and now letters is the way that it looks before I'd appended my exclamation marks. Let's pop something else. I'll call it b equals letters.pop. Let's pop the e at index 1. So there's e, and then I see letters, and we've removed index 1. If I want to insert something, I can use the insert method. So letters.insert, let's put an e back where it used to be. What have I've reversed the order. Sorry, so you start with the index, and then what you want to add there. So I'm going to insert at index 1 the e, and there you see it. Let's pretend that I want to remove lots of letters from the inside. Pop only lets you remove one element at a time. And you don't want to be in an awkward situation of trying to loop over a list and removing things while you're looping over it, because that's just asking for bugs. So if you want to remove several things, you can use the del operator, and you can use slice syntax to specify what it is that you want to remove. So for example, let's delete letters. We'll start at index 1 and go up through index 5. So as you can see, I removed the ELLO. Because it's a slice syntax, I could also do something like this. I could start at the beginning, I could go to the end, and this would remove every second character. Excuse me. You actually have to tell it what list you want to do the deleting from. So letters, default 2, and there you see I've taken this and I've removed every other letter. So I removed the H, and then the T, and then the E, and then the E, so I'm left over with just space HR. Lastly, there actually is a remove method where you can specify the value that you want to remove. Let's reset letters to be hello there. So I can say letters.remove, let's say H. This will remove the first occurrence of H. And there it is. Let's do an example that puts together some of these things. I'm going to define a method called getList. And the idea here is when I run the method, I want to repeatedly query the user to enter numbers, and then at the end of that process, we'll return a list of all the numbers that the user entered. So let's use a while loop for this. I'll say while true, which will loop infinitely. Let's start by declaring an empty list. And now I'll say value equals input type a number, space to exit, or not space, enter to stop. Yeah, great. And I'll say if the length of that value is 0, so in other words, if they just hit enter without typing anything, then let's return my list. Otherwise, I'll say a.append val. And then I don't need to return it there because I'll return it in the next loop iteration after they've hit enter. So let's try this. So now here I am, I've defined my method. Let's actually run it. So I'll say nums equals getList, and that's going to run it, and then I'll print nums. So let's run the script. Here we are. So it says type a num, enter to stop. I should have put a colon and a space. All right, so I'll type 3, 5, 7, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, and then enter. And as you can see, we've got this whole list now. Except, check out this data type. So what's the type of the first element in my list? My list is called nums. It's not a number, it's a string. So let's make a couple of changes here. First, let's make this look nicer. And then here I'll say, well, so one thing I could do is I could cast this to int before I append it. The danger there is what happens if they accidentally or on purpose type something that's not a number. So I can say if val.isNumeric is a method that will return true only if val has numeric content. So if it's numeric, then let's go ahead and do that. So let's run it one more time. So enter a number, 3, 4, 7, blah, blah, blah. A, great. So these non-numeric things aren't hurting it. And now if I display the type of the first element, it's an int.